All right, do this once and instantly improve your squat. You can improve your technique, you can improve the weight lifted, and therefore improve your strength. It's a win-win-win. So 3 parts here. Number 1, the thing that we want to do. Number 2, why some people, especially a lot of people in the YouTube comments, will hilariously, but also sadly, kind of object to doing that very thing. And then number 3, why it is that you want to do this thing. And then I'll wrap up with 3 principles at the end. So number 1, what it is that we want to do, all right? So let's assume that you're set up for the squat. Let's take care of a couple things that we're not talking about here, right? So you've got the bar in the nice low bar position, what we typically just call the position, right? So it's resting securely on your bunched up delts, but trapped from above, also, no pun intended, by your traps. You've backed out from the rack, roughly 1 full step on each side. You've taken a stance that's heels roughly shoulder width, toes pointed out about 30 degrees. You've established your focal point in front of you on the floor about 4 to 6 feet. You've taken a big breath. You've clamped down hard on every muscle in your midsection, in your trunk, if you will, as if you're going to take a punch. Don't say core unless you're a personal trainer wearing a too tight polo shirt holding on to a clipboard. So you are ready to squat. And you've got your toes pointed out 30 degrees, right? Roughly speaking, you know that as you squat, your knees are going to go, your femurs are going to go in that direction. So you're all set up to squat. Now, this is what you're going to do. This is the game changer. As you squat, you're going to reach back with your hips and you're going to point your chest at the floor. In other words, this is the thing. You're going to lean over as you squat and you're going to stay leaned over on the way up a little bit longer than you think you should. All right, so part number 2, what are the objections to this? All right, the first one is a little bit more of a funny objection, but we do occasionally hear it. And then number 2 is kind of the more serious objection. Objection number 1 that people will sometimes say, and you'll see this in the YouTube comments, which I always appreciate, is you're like, oh no, why are they squatting like this, right? They're going to lean over, they're going to fall over. Well, first of all, just from an evidence-based approach here, and I use that term very loosely, we don't have a whole lot of people just falling over randomly in our gym. In fact, we don't have it in general, all right? So you're not going to fall over, but this is the reason why, right? Let's talk about this seriously. The reason why is they're not just leaning over. Of course, if someone just leaned over, you would fall over forwards, okay? Likewise, if the only thing that you did was reach back with your hips and you didn't lean over, you would fall over backwards. Neither one of those are good things. That's why those 2 things go together. So this is a simultaneous movement, right? You're reaching back with your hips and you're leaning over at the same time. You want to be balanced always over the middle of your foot. Or you can think of it this way, if you're talking about the sensation in your feet, it's midfoot balance, but you can also think of it as you should not feel any more pressure on the front of your foot versus the back of your foot, right? You want that pressure, you want that weight evenly distributed throughout the entire foot. The second objection, and this time you'll get it from people who are often very, very often quite mad, like in the YouTube comments. And you're not going to get this objection from people who have trained seriously in the weight room for years. They've come to this realization over time. But you are going to hear it from the uninformed kind of fitness public at times, all right, especially in YouTube comments. And that is, they're going to see people getting leaned over and they're going to be like, oh no, why are you doing this? And we have people of all ages, right? We've got people as young as 8 or 9 years old, all the way up to people in their 80s and 90s. And they see the people, especially in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Bear in mind, these people come to us, our members come to us so that they can get stronger, so that they can get their back stronger. And they'll see these people lifting on video and they're like, you're going to break grandma's back, her spine is going to explode. Why are you doing this? I see a whole bunch of people and we're going to have real sore low backs, all right? And this is the more serious problem because this inspires fear in the people who go down and unfortunately read those YouTube comments, or it can inspire fear, right? And I don't want that to inspire fear. So here's the logic, right? This is not how you injure your back. This is how you get your back stronger, right? Worrying about leaning over and injuring your back is like worrying about injuring your brain while doing math or injuring your brain while reading, right? This is how your brain gets smarter. This is how your back gets stronger. It gets stronger by you using every single muscle in your trunk, in your back, like your spinal erectors, to clamp down and to hold that back in a nice straight position. So of course we don't want a rounded back. We also don't want an arched back, by the way, an overextended back. That tends to cause more problems. But we don't want a rounded back. We do want a straight back, but it's not always going to be vertical. It will take on a host of angles. Of course it's vertical at the beginning because you start in a standing up position. You finish in a standing up position, but in between it's going to take on a host of angles. You're going to lean over as you descend, and you're going to stay leaned over for a while. Let's just say roughly halfway up, maybe 2/3 of the way up, something like that. You're going to stay leaned over for a while on the way up, and this allows you to get your back strong, okay? What is interesting is these same people that will comment in the YouTube comments are like, don't lean over, this is terrible. These same people will realize that, of course, you are more leaned over in a deadlift than you ever are in a squat. And most people, like 90% of the population, just tossing out numbers here, deadlift more than they squat, very often significantly more, okay? In one of those lifts, the deadlift, the bar is hanging from your scapulas. In the other lift, the squat, the bar is sitting effectively on your scapulas. Unfortunately, our brains know the difference intellectually. Your body doesn't know the difference. Either way, that force goes down your back, down into the floor, through your legs. That's the kinetic chain, all right? So there's no difference on the back between those two things, and we are more leaned over in the deadlift than we are in the squat, and we use more weight, generally speaking, in the deadlift than in the squat. So it is safe. This is how you get the back strong. Bending over is a natural thing. Just try it sometime. It will be hilarious. Try to like pick up a sock off the floor without bending over. Try to stay in a perfectly vertical torsoed position. I welcome you to try the contortions that will be necessary to give that a shot, right? So bending over is a real normal thing. And if you can bend over holding onto a sock, right? Well, then you can bend over as you squat, hanging onto a 5-pound plate. And then you can do it hanging onto a 10-pound plate, and then so forth and so on. And then now maybe you're doing it with a 45-pound bar, right? Some people actually need to start at these levels. We work with a lot of people like this. Some people also start off at a much higher level, right? They start day one, 135 pounds, 185 pounds, stuff like that. So this is how your back gets stronger, by taking on that leaned over position. And it has the advantage, mechanically speaking, anatomically speaking, the more leaned over you are, the more your hips are back. Therefore, also the more your knees don't travel forward so far. They are also further back, which means while we are interested in using both joints, using the muscle mass surrounding both joints, the hips are the larger joint surrounded by more muscle mass. So we're going to ask them to do their fair share of the work. Let's just say it's 60-40 because I'm tossing out random numbers here, right? So we're getting the hips to do 60% of the load, 60% of the work, and we're getting the knees to do 40%. Is it actually 60-40? I don't know. I don't care. But the hips are larger. They should be doing their share of the work. So the more the hips reach back, the more of the load they take on. And to do that, you have to get into that nice leaned over position so that coming up out of the bottom, you can drive your hips up out of the hole, all right? So this is simultaneously the objection that we hear, and this is also the reason why you want to do it, right? This is part 3 as well. This is why we want to do it. So in summary, these are the 3 principles. You can get leaned over, you should get leaned over, and this is how you do it. You reach back, you point your chest at the floor. As always, we hope this helps you get stronger and live better.